Yo, what's good everybody? Your boy Bebop is here, and today we're going to be diving into some tips and tricks to help you level up your game in Sparking Zero. Now look, whether that means you're a newbie or just looking to polish your skills, I think I got you covered here. We're going to be diving into some tips that I feel people should know, or at least have in the back of their mind when they're playing games, whether that means you're in ranked or just playing with the homies, you want to get your lick back. I got you covered here today. Full disclosure, I am playing on standard controller. I feel it's way more optimal overall, at least for me, and I think a majority of players feel the same way. Classic is a little buggy right now, so let's jump right into it. All right, so one tip I'd like to highlight are the unblockable attacks. Now I know I've already made 2 videos covering unblockable ultimates and unblockable supers. If you haven't watched those, I really highly recommend you watch them. But listen, and just in case you have watched them, or you just need a little reminder or refresher, or you probably did watch them, but you're obviously not going to recollect every single character that has these unblockable supers and ultimates, right? Now, what if I told you that there is a way for you to identify which character has these unblockable attacks? What if I told you that there's a certain frame in the game that indicates these type of attacks? Now, if you guessed gray impact lines that show up on the screen, then you are indeed correct. These lines appear when an attack is unblockable, but they happen really quickly. So it's one of those things you got to pay close attention to. Think of it like a little visual cue telling you, yo, you gotta dodge this attack or vanish it. Another thing to take note of that I found interesting was during these animations, the screen goes gray just for a faint second. It's very subtle, but it's very much noticeable if you pay close attention. So when you see your opponent about to use a super or ultimate, it's one of those things you kind of gotta focus on and lock in on during their animation. So pay attention to those gray impact lines, and once you see them, you know for a fact you should not block this. So try your absolute best to vanish it, or just do your best to fly out of it to evade. Alright, so the second tip I have for you today is pretty short and sweet. It is the after image, it is the wild sense, it is the after image strike. All these things that you guys encounter in PvP, or you're just playing with the homies, whatever. So very quickly, I do want to address something. You have to pay attention to the top right corner of this screen. You got to pay attention more to the opponent's bar gauge instead of yours. That big fat number there is going to indicate how many stocks your opponent has. So what you could do is you could study up on each character to kind of see who has what. But if you're too bored and too lazy to do that, I understand, because trust me, that's over 180 characters that we got to study. Ain't nobody trying to do all that. But I do say be mindful when your opponent has 2 stocks, 3 stocks. 2 to 3 is that sweet spot. So usually a lot of characters have that wild sense and after image. Now, visuals aside, obviously you're not going to always be paying attention, and that's okay. But some people actually don't know that just in case you didn't see how many stocks they had, you can actually just listen. And what I mean by that is whenever an opponent or even yourself has stocks, as soon as that number increases, there's a little sound. Once you constantly hear this sound, you know for a fact that either the gauge has increased or it depleted. 9 times out of 10, when it depletes, that means they used their wild sense, their after image, or their after image strike. So this, I feel, could help you not only visually but also audibly. I know how annoying wild sense, after image, and after image strike, especially after image strike, can be. So hopefully that can also help you turn the tides when you know, okay, this is activated. And FYI, after image strike does last for 15 seconds. And I know that sounds like a lot, but there's an indefinite amount of things that you can do to stall that time out. Which leads me to my next tip. Alright, so one of the many ways you can counter after image strike is essentially fighting fire with fire. You can also run somebody that has after image strike, wild sense, or after image. Now keep in mind, wild sense and after image only give you that 1 saving grace, as opposed to after image strike, which lasts 15 seconds, so you could just infinite vanish. Now obviously another way to counter this for sure is when you are attacking, you could just vanish immediately after your attack. Now be mindful, of course, because it does drain your ki and it is a little risky. Another way to counter this effect is ki blasts. Ki blasts are very essential to the game, and a lot of people kind of sleep on it. They made ki blasts extremely powerful in this game, and people ought to be using it a lot more. Whether that's just to counter somebody, to engage in battles, just to create some distance, ki blast is the way. Think of ki blast like jabs. You want to just constantly jab your opponent. Ki blast will almost always stagger your opponent and catch him off guard, and you will definitely have an advantage. So definitely keep ki blast in your inventory and use it a lot more than you should. So you're here because you got backshots to death. I get it, bro. You too. So you're going to go back to the training mode. Yeah, that's right. You're going to go back to training mode and you're going to go to advanced, okay? You're going to go to advanced counters and you're going to hit that little crazy button that says super counter. Yes, sir. Yeah, we're going to learn that. You know why? It is probably the most important defensive maneuver that you need to master. Everything else is just as important. However, I think the super counter is the one that you need to master the most, because you know what's crazy about it? The fact that it's free. Yeah, that's right, it's free. No cost of your key, no cost of your gauge, nothing. Doesn't cost any stocks. It is free. However, it is one of the most difficult things to master. Sometimes you land it, sometimes you don't. I find that this is a very, at times for me, very inconsistent. I can't really say there are tricks to learn this, except it's just really more about your timing. So I'm not saying I'm going to teach you this. I'm kind of just really emphasizing this is really important to master. Also, what kind of works for me, because I know there are people that were confused that, well, if you just hold up and square, it'll work. That is wrong. You need to flick. I'm on the PlayStation, so what I do is I flick up on my analog stick and I press square. Remember, I am on standard, so I don't know if that's different on the classic controls, but for me, all I do is I flick and I hit square simultaneously. There are two inputs at the same time, so I consider it one input, right? You go up and square at the same exact time. The millisecond that you are hit, that is when you want to intercept that attack and hopefully super counter it. Oh, so you thought it was finished? Nah, son, stay your ass in that training mode. You are going to go to intermediate now. You're going to go to advanced close range maneuvers. And this is not really a must know, but it is a good trick to know. It is your advanced perfect smashes. Now, I find that mastering this is really essential to kind of spicing up your gameplay and catching people off guard. It is one of the most unpredictable attacks in the game. Very hard to super counter, very hard to vanish, very hard to predict. All you have to really do is hold square at a perfect time, usually about a second. You'll see that your character will start to glow. You don't want to make him glow all the way. If you notice here as well, it definitely creates some distance. So you can definitely do this at a pretty sizable range. So it doesn't have to be super close. It could be from a good distance so you can land the attack. Again, it isn't the most essential thing to learn, but I think it is something to learn to apply to your gameplay overall, just to throw people off guard. Alright, so we're still going to be in the battle training. We're going to go to the impact actions, and we're going to take a look at the crash impact for an example. Crash impact seems pretty easy, right? But there's a little trick to this one. So apparently when you see the light start to flicker, that is when you want to hit the QTE. If you do this too soon, you will end up failing the QTE. So just a little reminder that you want to be a little more patient with this one. I know that sounds a little opposite of what you're supposed to do, because obviously you're supposed to do this as fast as possible. But the thing is, you don't want to do it too fast. Now let's take a look at speed impact. Speed impact is much more common to see than the rest. Now, speed impact could definitely be tricky because sometimes I'll be having the habit of mashing as I'm already clashing, so I already failed the quick time event. But what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to wait until that circle gets smaller and smaller until you get into that other tiny circle, that purple area. That is where you want to be, that sweet spot. Once you do land it and you're successful, you want to mash square as best as you can. Now, surprisingly, a lot of people were definitely confused about the blast impact, as was I. So blast impact, as we all know, beam clash, right? This one is a little tricky. Some people have the habit of mashing triangle, which is what you're not supposed to do. Now, what you're supposed to do is you allow the bar to fill up as high as possible. If you want to take the risk and break, by all means, but you want to go as high as possible, press triangle, then do it again, and then do it again, right? Maybe in the last second, you want to mash it to get a little extra, by all means, but the point is you want to allow it to go and fill up, and then you press triangle and let it stack up the more it continues. Remember that this blast impact lasts about 5 seconds. All right, so finally we have our power impact. Now this one is pretty interesting. It was a little confusing at first, but it is pretty simple to pick up. If you hold square for too long, it'll go past the line and it'll break. If it breaks, you lose that clash. But instead, what you want to do, you want to firmly grasp the square button. You don't want to press it too hard, but you don't also want to be too gentle. Think of it kind of like accelerating in a gas pedal. You don't want to put too much of your foot on the gas. So think of the same context with that, like driving a car. You want to just put enough pressure on it just so it doesn't go cross the line. Now, if you do want to press right trigger to break it to go even further, that by all means, that's up to you. I feel like that's more dedicated if you're in a very tight situation. You are 1 HP, your opponent is 1 HP, and you want to break the gauge, by all means, you go do that. Other than that type of circumstance, it is not a must-win type of scenario. All right, and I think my final tip for today is for you to like this video and subscribe. Please don't leave my channel. Nah, but I think the last tip for this video will be just overall movement, sidestepping to be more specific. Now, sidestepping is hella crucial to your movement and overall strategy and play throughout the game. People just have a habit of rushing and dashing recklessly, and people need to understand that you drain ki hella fast in this game. You drain ki as fast as you gain ki. One of the best things that you can do to optimize not only conserving your ki, but overall defense is sidestepping. Sidestepping only happens when you are in range with your enemy. And it is exactly how it's supposed to sound like. You are sidestepping, you are moving away from your enemy's attacks. You are essentially baiting their attacks and moving left and right, kind of trying to trick your opponent from attacking you. Just trying to bob and weave, you feel me? Not only does it look sick, but it is cool as hell to pull off. Many ankles will be broken. One of the best tips I recommend is, hop in on a hyperbolic time chamber with your homie and have him just simply attack you and you dodge. Basically playing a game of offense and defense. Your friend will be the one attacking you and you will be the one defending, and vice versa. I know it may sound cheesy, but that is really how you train and get better at this game. It takes a lot of practice to put all of this into play. Nothing is overnight, and I am far from a great player. I don't even think I'm a good player, but I am a player that knows how to adapt. And I also am a player that loves to have fun and switch things up. I don't like to keep things stagnant. So yeah, I want to look a little flashy, look a little saucy when I'm playing this game. One of the best things to do is moving like you know what you're doing, even if you don't. Over here, bachata dancing with your opponents. All you're simply doing is clicking X and moving left and right. And if you want to actually mix it up as well, what I like to do is I like to press X as I'm sidestepping, and I like to press the guard button. What that essentially does is either it helps me vanish or it helps me block incoming attack. Also helps you weave a little better. If you see how my Gogeta is moving in this gameplay, then you'll see what I mean by that. Practice, practice, practice. Not only is sidestepping good for defense, but it's hella nice for offense. Your opponent is one of those tricky guys who loves to just block and counter and play passive, that you can sidestep and try to get behind them. You can bait out attacks. There's a bunch of things that you can do with sidestepping. It isn't just purely defense. Overall, the main message is switch up your tactics, switch up your movements. Don't be so predictable and so linear. Add some spice and flavor to your movements and to your gameplay, and you will see some progress. With that being said, that is all from me for today. If you like this type of video, give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment below what's your favorite part and what things you probably want me to cover in the future. I'll do my absolute best. I like covering PvP guides. I love doing this type of videos. It genuinely makes me happy because not only am I probably teaching that one person out there, it helps me learn as well. We're all still grinding. This game is still hella fresh and new. There's a lot of gameplay to uncover, and there's a lot to learn still. Nobody is perfect. Nobody just happens to be great overnight. Don't be discouraged. I know ranked is a hot mess, but this game is meant to be fun. It is meant to be played with the homies. It is meant to be played with the right type of people to have in your circle. Have fun, improve, get in the lab, start cooking, and let me know in the future if this video helped you at all. With that being said, y'all be easy. Y'all have a good one, and I hope to see you one day because you catching these hands. Much love though.